Because I was holding on to that identity as an athlete, I didn't set all that back end stuff up so I can leave smooth.
That moment, I thought, this is not what life's about.
For me, the shift was after coming to reality that identity was not attached to sport.
Hey guys, time for another episode of the StrongBullPodcast. Today, I am joined by Don Dixon and the big guy, the boss, Jeff Evans. I'm Wendy.
Bigger than me.
Well, the head honcho. Founder of Serious Performance. So today we're kind of shifting gears a little bit, talking more of mindset and that sport is life mentality. So both of these guys were high-level athletes way back in the day, football, CrossFit, and their whole life was sports. And then all of a sudden that's taken away, whether you just grow up, whether you're injured, whatever. And how do you make that transition from being an athlete into the real world? So we're just going to kind of break that down and talk about everybody's journey. So Jeff, do you want to start? Give a little background about what you did. And
Right. Sport-wise, I started 6th grade running track. I was always a fast guy, fast kid around the neighborhood. Started with that, ran track all the way to my senior year in high school. My last year in high school, I actually only played 1 year of varsity football.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did freshman, did JV sophomore year, went to varsity junior year, dislocated my shoulder. I was playing safety. Actually really good at it, but dislocated my shoulder because I could not tackle at all. I was always like this instead of underneath. And then switched to receiver my last year, and it made sense because I was fast. So, and literally went from the first game of the season, it was raining against our rivals, dropping, which would have been a touchdown pass, and looking like crap, to the next game, I ended up becoming the number 1 receiver in the area.
Wow.
Literally just running past everybody and just, doing my thing, and got a scholarship and played college ball all 4 years, and then went right into CrossFit after that.
Where you made it to the games.
Right, yeah.
I'll forget
Games.
that part.
Yeah, games in 14, and it was a tough transition to get out of the athlete mindset, but we'll get into that. How I grew up, and you might have been similar, like it's either like entertainment or sports.
Yeah,
and that's all I knew. Like I had to perform, let my body do the work, and that's how I was gonna make money.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was tough getting out of that.
Yeah, what did your sports journey look like?
Very similar. I grew up playing multiple sports, and then football was always my true passion. My dad played football, I played football, all my siblings, and that was something that, for me growing up was like the ticket out from, poverty and just suffrage. So was fortunate enough to play football in high school, got a scholarship, free education, went to play football in college. And then
Where'd you go?
Shepherd University.
Okay.
Up near Maryland. Played up there, and then, the ideal identity was NFL. Like there was no question, you couldn't tell me anything different. And then for me, the shift was after coming to reality that identity was not attached to sport. So for me, that was like the biggest transition. But yeah, I was just fortunate enough to play, and football was my way of giving back to the world, in my opinion. It was like, this is my duty, this is my talent, this is how I'm going to show up in the world. So for me, that was everything. And then when it didn't happen, it was like identity was in question big time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that feel, or what did that look like?
It felt purposeless. Like I felt like everything that I was doing was empty, minus football. I'm like, this has nothing to do with football, or I don't know what I'm going to do now that football's over. So the shift for me was like perspective of my purpose isn't attached to what I do. My purpose is how I show up. So for me, that was like the biggest turning point of realizing that, football can be another thing for me. It can be fitness. It can be, other ways, health and wellness, to give back. So for me, my passion evolved to something different, but my purpose remained the same. And I just had to find out what my purpose was.
Did you hit like a, kind of like a depression at all?
Yeah, big time. Right after my last NFL tryout, whenever they were like, "You're good, you're just not good enough." Like hearing that was kind of like,
Damn.
yeah, you serious, So, and then you see guys that you play with that may have made it, opportunities. And that again goes back to you comparing, but in my head I thought I was comparing, but really I was just envious. Which I think is the biggest thief of joy, is being envious of people. You should compare, because comparison lets you know where you're at and maybe where you want to obtain personally. But I was envious of everybody that I saw that had made it. So for me, that was like the big depression. And I felt like I wasted college. I felt like I wasted my family's time, friends' time, all those things.
Did you feel that you were like you were in control before of your destiny, and
absolutely.
then you have no say so.
Right.
You didn't make it, so
No,
then you
identity
feel like
crisis.
a loss of
Absolutely,
control.
yeah. I didn't realize who I was at that time. I didn't know that I was still dumb. I felt like I was like a failure at that same.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it was for me. All my buddies, they were playing football, and then I got into it later, like being on the varsity. I said I wanted to go to the NFL, but deep down I didn't care about it. I wanted to be the first one to get a scholarship and graduate college. Like mine was about the degree.
Yeah.
So even we did our pro day, didn't go well. It was like 30 degrees, and we did everything outside. It was terrible.
That's awful.
Did that, and then I was like, it just flipped. It's like I felt like a piece of meat because they were measuring hands and arm length and all this stuff. I was like, why am I doing this? So like at that point, it was just like I called the guy I was about to work with as an agent or be my agent. Told him I'm done. Like, I really don't care for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was that point you hit. It took me longer to hit it because I found CrossFit. Like I graduated in 11, found CrossFit in 12, and then just took off with that. So it just prolonged it another like 7-8 years until I hit that point. And it's like I love business, and because for me making it to games, you had a lot of people coming to you with different ideas and things like that, and my ego was inflating, not on like a bragging kind of vibe. It was more like, damn, I can do anything. So I'll take on all these projects and things like that. So whether it's MLM, clothing line, like all these different types of businesses and things I was doing, opening a gym, nothing ended up working out. And I'm glad it didn't, because I wouldn't be here if it didn't. But because I was solid as an athlete and able to attain these things with my body, I thought it was going to translate over, which
But also too, I think people, they would look at you like, all right, you made a name for yourself at the games for sure, because you got second in that one, lifting event.
Second in heavy.
But I think people don't realize behind the scenes, like CrossFit was such a new sport that you're not getting paid that much.
Right.
You do have sponsors and all that stuff, but it's not like you can, ride it out and.
Yeah, unless you're winning, top 3.
Yeah.
At this point, top 3 maybe. But
now, once CrossFit went away, how did you feel?
Well, so when CrossFit went away in 2017, I opened my gym in 2016, and when I stopped, that's when all the sponsor money went away. So then it hit me even harder, because I think I was around 29, 30. So it's like at this point in my life, I thought I should have had everything figured out and set me up. But because I was holding on to that identity as an athlete, I didn't set all that back end stuff up so I can leave smooth and transition into the business side. And the gym wasn't in a spot where I can start getting paid and all that, and opportunity ended up popping up in Melbourne, because I saw the writing was on the wall. Is like, I'm broke, in debt. Like, I dealt with a lot of stuff. Like, I had 2 repos along the way. Like, I was a broke athlete, throughout the entire time, and people will see all the heavy lifting and stuff like that, but they don't realize all the sacrifice. And I see all these kids nowadays, unless you're living at home with your parents, it's tough.
Absolutely.
But I was lost for sure.
Yeah, and another thing that I've noticed definitely with you, and I think we talked about this too, Dom, is when you were an athlete, a high-level athlete, you're always training for a certain goal. So once that's taken away, is it hard to start training again when you don't have a goal? I know you struggle with that.
I didn't, I started gaining weight. Dad bod was in full effect. My upper body started like shrinking. My stomach and love handles, all this stuff, and because it's like you got no purpose. Like literally from 6th grade all the way up to 30, 31 years old, it was like I have a purpose to train for a sport. And now, like, I've never trained for health. What the hell is that?
Yeah,
right.
It's uncharted territory for sure. Like, even come back to that athlete mentality. You're told what to do from the time you're a kid until you're done. So when you no longer have that authoritative figure in your life to be like, do this many sets, off season, in season, you're just like, oh, I guess I'll just kick it now. Let's go to the gym and do a couple of these, couple of those, and I'm good.
Right, 21, I'm good to go.
Yeah, that was cool. And for most people, that is where you kind of stay, right, until you find the education part or, the fulfillment again. So I was in that limbo for a little bit, but I was fortunate enough that I worked in a gym because I went to school for exercise science, but didn't learn much of that in that time because in my head, NFL, I don't need any of this. So when I went there, to the gym, I kind of was just like hanging out, doing what I thought we did in football. And then once I started to realize the impact that health and wellness had on people's lives is when it switched for me.
Okay.
I was like, oh, this person, Dr. Loria comes in, and these sets and reps change their perspective on how hard it is outside the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, this is cool, this is different. And then I go backtrack and I start relearning the things that I learned in school, and then it all came together. So I was very fortunate that I did an internship after college, after I was in that depression state where I didn't know my identity, who I was. That is where I found fitness, and it evolved and changed my perspective to what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. I think about like when I lost everything and moved to Melbourne, the meal prep company I was working for, that ended up going out of business. And because I've been an athlete and personal training, group class, all that stuff, when I lost everything, that was the first thing I tried to fall back on. Is go to a gym and find a job there. And I'm glad it didn't work out, because I wouldn't be in have this corporate career.
Yeah.
And same with Sirius, like expanding on this, it's grown almost 4 years now. If I would have stayed in that world, I wouldn't have been able to experience all this stuff. So for me, getting outside of my comfort zone, like, it was the best thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. What would you guys say is the number one lesson you learned in sports that is serving you now in the real world?
I think it's knowing that everything you're doing in that moment does end. Whether that ending is blissful, whether that ending is, bitter, it does end. So I think realizing that and then enjoying the moment, taking it for what it is, and then knowing that there's something greater is what I would have taught myself back then. Like, this is not the end all be all. When you put all the eggs in that basket. Now, there's players who go on and play for decades or whatever, and that's great, but that still is an expiration date. And knowing that there's something greater when you're outside of that sport is what I would tell myself if I had to go back and learn.
Yeah.
I would say all the transferable skills of being an athlete, like your discipline, you work hard, all those things.
That's really good.
It's hard to teach an average person that, because they haven't gone years and years of like being structured in that way. And that's why, like, being in the corporate world 5 years now, why I've excelled in both positions that I was in, going into a third position now. They see that a lot of them hire former athletes because of that, because you can't teach hard work and like waking up super early and getting after it, all that stuff. Right. Like, they know you understand what it takes to build your territory, whatever it is. So those skill sets, I wish more athletes knew that.
Yeah.
Because then they can go out whatever the job they want to do in the corporate world or whatnot, or entrepreneurship. As long as they have that same framework and apply it, all the other, if you have to learn, finance, accounting, all that stuff, you can learn that. But then all that work ethic and all the behind the scenes stuff to keep you going, it's tough.
And what I think people don't realize unless they've been an athlete is that it's a very selfish thing. In that meaning, it's all about when you are training, when you are eating, when you are sleeping, and it's hard to have like an outside life or relationships even, or you better have a relationship with someone who understands that, and can support that. So now that you're, last question here, now that you're not an athlete and that was your identity, I'm Don, I'm an athlete, I'm Jeff, and I'm an athlete, what would you say is your, who are you now? If you led with that, what would that be?
What I obtain to be is a man of service in any capacity that I'm in. So whether that's working with Sirius, working with my business, I just want to be a man of service in that moment. Like, obviously you are supposed to put yourself first, but when you're in a room of people, it's how can I service these people? How can I make their lives better through my experience? So that's my goal, is to be a man of service and to continue to be, a man of service.
Now, for me, like, my mindset now is all about realizing my potential, because that'll put me in a position, like you were saying about service. Like, if I'm at my best, I can help everybody around me become better, because like that saying, all rising tides raise all boats.
Rising tides raise all ships.
So if I'm at my best, everybody around me can be at their best, and we all just help each other continue to elevate. So that's what I'm all about these days.
And dad. That's what Christina better not watch that.
No, because if I'm at my best, I can be a better fiance, dad, and all that. And I've noticed, like, I'm not, like, I listen to Patrick Bet-David a lot, and he talks about, like, the selfish versus selfless, like the right ratio, and it's kind of at a 65-35, 70-30. of selfish
Yes.
and selfless, because you can push yourself enough and achieve the things you want to, and then that 30% continues to grow
Yes.
because everybody else around you is pulling up.
I agree.
Right.
So, yeah. Real quick before we end, because we didn't ask you anything,
Yes.
Okay.
because you were Hilo Regional for a while before you finished, how was that transition? Because you were already a business owner and you worked in the corporate world.
Right.
So you were, you went from that structure to entrepreneurship and being an athlete during that time, going to regionals and whatnot. How was that for you being done and then continue to apply all that same stuff?
It
Like
wasn't
intangibles.
honestly that hard because I always have more than one thing going on. So even if it was like I have one job, but I also am an athlete, it's not like everything was taken away from me. So that helped. When I made the decision not to compete anymore, try to make it to the CrossFit Games as a master's athlete, I went through like the toughest time in my life in terms of, on a personal level, my brother, who was my best friend, passed away in a car accident. And it just all of a sudden, when I'm beating myself up at the gym, not sleeping well because my shoulder hurts, that moment I thought, this is not what life's about, so then I just decided to, turn away from it all. And it's the only thing that's weird. It's weird not having a goal, an athletic goal.
Right.
Like I was just telling Jimmy, I might do a powerlifting competition in February just to see if I can see how I do,
Right.
So I think, I can have little goals that pop up here and there, but, my identity is not tied to being an athlete for sure. There's always been something more. Yeah, so I think this was helpful for people who haven't been as high level as you guys to know that there is a transition. It can be dark, but athletics teaches you so much about the real world, and there's so many lessons you can apply in becoming a better person.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time.